Most cities have, what, 35? You know the average?
I can't do it this week. I'll try to next week.
The Topeka City Council meeting will please come to order. If you would rise as you are able and give your attention to Councilman Jensen for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce Pastor Doyle Pryor from the First Southern Baptist Church.
Let me just say, as we open tonight, what a privilege it is to be here. Thank you for your service. I am a new Topekan. I have been here for a little over a year. Matter of fact, you have wooed my family so much that my son, entering college this fall, has chosen Washburn over about 4 or 5 other universities. And so we're grateful as a family for your service, and also as a church that enjoys its service to the city of Topeka at First Southern. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your grace. We thank you, Lord, for the way you provide for us. What a gorgeous day. We thank you for resources, Father. After being in over 14 countries in the last few years, seeing, Lord, what we have versus what the rest of the world has, we know that we're blessed by your hand. Thank you for the management of that. Thank you for a city in which we get to enjoy that freedom. Thank you for the organization that makes it all work. And Father, in these days that are tumultuous, I pray for wisdom. I pray for discernment. I pray for strength. I pray, Father, that this would be a city where we can discover that we're not just about tolerance, we're about Christian love and hospitality. May you, Jesus, rule in all of that. And we also pray, Father, that you would be glorified by every decision made. Governments are by your hand. And yes, we're elected publicly, but you're the one that sets up and takes down all authority. So we praise you, Father. We praise you for in your wisdom you've providentially set this night for this purpose. And even things that seem so troubling to us sometimes as budgets are even an act of your hand. Thanks, God. And I thank you and pray your blessings now on each of these councilmen, upon their families, and especially upon the time they're having to live separate. Qualify their time with their families, Father. Make it even better because of their time in service. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I know. I don't think I have time.
Well, tonight is a special proclamation, one you could say we have about every 100 years, marking a centennial, and that is of the National Park Service. With me is Anamene Ekong, the Chief of Interpretation of Education and Cultural Resources at the Brown v. Board Education, and Joan Wilson, the Park Ranger and Volunteer Coordinator at Brown v. Board. So we have a proclamation. Whereas on August 25, 1916, 100 years ago next Monday, President Woodrow Wilson signed the act creating the National Park Service, a new federal bureau in the Department of Interior responsible for protecting 35 national parks and monuments. And whereas national parks represent some of the last preserves of our natural habitat that provide safe havens for plants, trees, and animals, which are often threatened by population growth, land development, and protects historic sites to preserve our national heritage. And whereas the National Park System of the United States now comprises 400 sites, covering more than 84 million acres in all 50 states, Kansas is represented in the National Park Service by Fort Larned, National Historic Site, Fort Scott, National Historic Site, Nicodemus, National Historic Site, Tallgrass Prairie National Preserve, and our own Brown v. Board of Education National Historic Site that was dedicated by President George W. Bush in 2005. Whereas our national parks safeguard these special places and share their stories with more than 275 million visitors every year by providing important fragments of the diverse history of the people who have occupied our country despite their struggles, conflicts, triumphs, and tragedies. And now, therefore, I, Larry Wolgass, Mayor of the City, do hereby proclaim the year of 2016 as the National Park Service Centennial Year. And actually, National Park Service representatives are going to be here next week, beginning August 22nd. Do you want to tell a little bit about that?
I'll be very brief. Once again, thank you all. Enemini Ekong, Chief of Interp, and Ed at Brown v. Board. Next week, from August 22nd to August 26th, we are having our Santa Fe Rivers Trails and Conservation Office come out and work towards the establishment of the Oregon Trail here throughout the city of Topeka. Most of the installation will go on at Great Overland Station. There will be a town hall meeting August 23rd from Monday, August 22nd, and then there will be events all throughout the week to invite the public out to not only give their voice, but to be a part of what we're hoping to bring to Topeka. As you well know, all national parks not only bring visitation, but they bring economic dollars. Whenever you come to visit a park, you have to have somewhere to sleep, eat, and ultimately enjoy yourself. And so we're happy to bring yet another attraction here to the greater Topeka area.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think that's a 2016 Centennial badge. Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. City Manager, I believe we have some presentations. If you want to proceed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our first presentation this evening will be the second quarter financial report brought to us by Brandon Kaufman, Director of Finance.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. So tonight we have the second quarter financial report. It's the preliminary report. As always, nothing's final until the audited statements come in, typically around May or June of the next year. So we have a presentation here tonight at very high level. The second quarter financial report is available online at topeka.org, and then Where's My Money? It's got a lot more detail than I'll cover tonight, but you all should have received this in your packet as well. So the first quarter for revenues, these are total revenues and total expenditures, so combining all funds together. We had total revenues $135.9 million, which is about a 1% decrease compared to the prior year in 2015. And then total expenditures of $96.6 million, and that's about a 6% increase, $5 million difference compared to 2015. I want to talk about these are our key revenues that we like to watch on a continual basis, just to make sure that everything's on track as far as how we planned according to the budget. So these key revenues here make up 74% of all the revenues of the city. You can see the ad valorem taxes are up and collections about 1%, which is a good sign considering the mill levy was flat for the current year. Sales tax is up 2% year to date. There's some good things that we're seeing along with sales tax. One negative thing, which you also see in franchise fees, is that utility collections for sales tax are down about 15% year to date. Construction is up, though, 22% for sales tax collections. Retail is up by 2%. Information cable, such cable internet, is down about 9% year to date. And food is up 4%. Water fees are up currently 9%. So compared to the wet year that we had last year, revenues are doing a little bit better as we had a drier summer this year. Wastewater fees, we've collected $12.8 million this year. That's up about 4%. And then, as I just mentioned, franchise fees are down for the year, and they're currently down about 6%. Hopefully, we'll see some recovering there as we're going through the summer months, and generally people utilize a little bit more of their air conditioning during the summer months. So this is total expenditures, as I mentioned earlier, $96.6 million. Year-to-date, up 6%. Personnel is up about at $43.9 million, is up 2% for the year. I'd say that's pretty general for with our contracts and all the other things that go into salaries and benefits. Contractual, we've spent $26.6 million year-to-date. That's up about 2%. Commodities, we've spent $6.2 million. That's up about $1.4 million, or 30% for the year. That's generally a little bit higher than we'd like to see. What's going on there is there have been a number of breaks throughout the city and water lines, so our commodity purchases are up, in addition to chemicals and non-capital equipment to assist with those water line breaks. Other payments are up 9%, $18.2 million, or a difference of $1.47 million. The biggest driver there right now is our health claims are up about $834,000 year-to-date. So that's a large increase that we're seeing with health claims, as we've talked about through this budget process. And capital outlay is up about to $1.45 million. That's up about 344%. A lot of that's timing of capital equipment compared to purchases of last year. So we've just had more capital equipment purchased this year than the prior. So growth factors for revenues. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a flat mill levy, but we're seeing a 1% increase. That's a good factor that we're seeing. Sales tax continues to trend up, which is a great sign compared to earlier in the year when it was pretty flat. Franchise fees were down, but we're hoping that's going to recover throughout the summer. And then water and wastewater continue to increase as we roll through the summer. So general fund results year-to-date, you can see revenues of $56.4 million, expenditures of $43.15, for a net change of $13.2 million. That's pretty typical of what we'll see in the general fund, considering that we receive our property tax payments generally in 2 lump sum payments from the county in January and June. So that margin will start to tighten as we go along throughout the year. Water fund results, revenues of $14.6 million compared to expenditures of $14.2, for about a $400,000 net change, positive change for the current year. Wastewater results, total revenues of $13.15 compared to expenditures of $11, for a net change, positive change of about $2.1 million for the current year. Stormwater results, you can see revenues there of about $3.4 million compared to expenditures of $2.9, for about a $50,000 positive change for the current year. So that's the very high level, the focus on some of the key funds that we have. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Are there questions for Mr. Kaufman? Mr. Emerson.
Brandon, on the commodities, because I saw we see it in here too, but it doesn't give us a breakdown. Is that something you could supply, or is that available online?
Councilmember Emerson, that's something that we could supply.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Seeing none, thank you very much for the presentation, for the information. We'll see you next quarter. Mr. City Manager, for the next presentation.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're going to have a second quarter Public Works and Utility report. I'm going to initially turn it over to Mr. Gerber, and then I believe he's going to invite Mr. Peak to clean up on this.
Mr. Gerber.
Mr. Mayor, governing body, thank you. Good evening. As you know, this is the second time we've done this report for you. And the intent, just to reemphasize, the intent is to give you Similar to the financial report, a high-level overview of what's going on with our projects. You have in front of you from both utilities and public works documents that list projects that are under construction, that are being awarded, that are being bid, and projects that have been complete. My intent tonight is to go through a couple utilities projects, and then, as the city manager noted, turn it over to Mr. Peak, and he'll run through a couple of public works projects. I would also continue to reemphasize that we want to solidify the tie in everyone's mind between public works and utilities. We've oftentimes forgotten that streets and utilities go together and that they're an integral part of each other. They're part and parcel, and we have to treat them as really a complete unit, a complete street policy. So just continue to reemphasize that. So I will go through just highlight a couple of projects that may be of interest to the council, and then I'll bring Mr. Peak up, and he will do the same thing. The first thing I would point out on the Public Utilities Report is the number of pump stations that are on this list. That's not something we talk about very often, but it should be of interest to everyone, because whether it's a water pump station or a wastewater pump station or a stormwater pump station, they're an integral part of the way we distribute or collect the various utilities. If you look at the second project down from the top, the City Park Stormwater Pump Rehab, that's a stormwater pump station that's just south of the Kansas River, north of downtown. And that's completely rehabbing a pump from 1956. So again, it's not the kind of projects that gather a lot of press or that amaze people, but they're vitally important to what we do as a utility. Moving down a little farther, you see the water treatment plant Lane Booster Pump Station. Those of you who went on our CIP tour will remember that we toured the Lane Station building, and those again are pumps from the 1950s. Those are pumps that pump out every drop of water that we treat in the city to the rest of the city, and so if we happen to lose one of those pumps, it would be devastating to how we drink water, and we'd be perhaps facing a situation like Manhattan did yesterday. So we want to make sure that we keep those pumps in good working order. You'll notice that we'll be awarding a couple of water pump stations here in the very near future, the Norwood and Montera booster pump stations, and that we completed the Central booster pump station and the Kirklawn booster pump station this year already. So again, those are projects that are vitally important to what we do. The second project I might highlight is partway down the under construction list, and that's Southeast California from 33rd to 37th. I know Mr. Peak will talk about it when he gets up here, but from a water perspective, we actually have someone sitting at the dais who could probably give you even better information than I could, but that project is underway. There has been some conflicts with other private utilities, which we're trying to work through in terms of how those utilities were relocated and the manner in which they were relocated. But at this point, that project is underway and should be proceeding as appropriate. Second from the bottom of the under construction, the East Side Interceptor CSO number 7 to Ash Street Pump Station. That's a project you've gotten updates on a semi-regular basis from the city manager regarding the amount of debris that we've cleaned from that interceptor. At this point, we've taken out over 1,100 tons of material. So that was a surprise to us, how much debris is in there. And in the end, it'll be a good thing, but we're still in that portion of the project where we're cleaning. The next step will be to sort of analyze what we figured out and start hopefully figuring out the design of a new interceptor in that area. And then finally, I would give you a brief update on the levee project. That's been a high-profile project for everyone. The Oakland unit is nearing completion. They're working out there well, maybe not as we speak, but certainly they're out there working today. So that is at this point nearing completion. We're calling it 70% done with the Oakland piece, hopefully to be completed by October of this year. That's still the target date. The North Topeka portion of the levee project is ready to be bid, so we'll be bidding that in the very near future. Construction should start this fall, and that should be about a 2-year project. And then finally, the South Topeka piece is in what we would call the 35% design phase. So they're working with the Corps to get that design, and they're working through that process right now.
And that North Topeka unit, that's really between the Sardu Bridge and Kansas Street Bridge, isn't it? Or it's more into the city.
Mr. Mayor, the North Topeka piece?
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then also, I'm just noting that several of these utility projects are where there's major street construction, which I think is another important point.
Correct.
Many of these, Wanamaker, California, 37th Street.
Correct, Mr. Mayor. Again, that's why we combine these reports to show the unique relationship between street work and utility work.
Is there questions comments on the utilities? Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Gerber, I understand under construction, bidding, and complete, but I don't understand awarding.
Councilwoman Ortiz, that means we've bid the project and are getting ready to proceed with award of a contract, but haven't done that yet. So the project's been bid, we've received those bids, we're evaluating them, but so it's the in-between phase between bidding and construction.
Okay.
So the next step in awarding would be to award the contract to a contractor to do
Okay.
the project.
Okay.
Other questions or comments
Thank you.
on the utilities? All right.
Yeah.
Good evening, governing body. I have a good news report for you with some footnotes. And as we've talked about before, 2016, the year of the streets. We've heard comments from citizens about the number of detours and orange cones up around the city. We currently have approximately $35 million under construction on street and utility projects throughout the city. As you can see from the Orange Barrel report, we have a total of about 25 projects with all but 5 that are not currently under construction. The last one that's in the bidding phase where we'd move into award and construction, we opened bids on 8/24. That would be the last of the projects for the 2016 CIP to get underway. What I wanted to talk to you, though, also tonight about the footnotes are some of the challenges that we've experienced in delivering these projects. We started this process really back in February as far as design, bidding, getting these projects out. And some of those challenges that are included are what we call utility conflicts. As Deputy City Manager mentioned, the California project, for example, when we reconstruct a street, we coordinate with the private utilities to relocate. We give them that notice to relocate, tell them where they need to be, and sometimes they don't exactly go in that corridor that we need them to be in. And so we have to be flexible and adapt and overcome those challenges. Also, scheduling, I think this year's Year of the Streets have brought a number of things to light from us in our plan development process and how we actually work these through. We've started a process internally with us and utilities to really look at how we develop plans and deliver them to make sure we meet schedules. We had a number of conversations with contractors about the way that we're bidding these projects to make sure that we're getting good value in the bid prices that we receive and are able to deliver the projects in the time frame we stated. So some of the things we had to do this year was actually take some projects and split them up over 2 construction seasons. Our planned development projects, we were bidding some projects in July, so that shortens the available construction window. And so on some of those projects, we basically allowed it to have a winter shutdown and then reopen in the spring. The other thing that we've had challenges with this year is weather. We're in this hot, humid period right now, but it's easy to forget that in April and May, we had over 45 days of rain. When you have a project that's in a reconstruction phase, we've got the road torn up, it's mud, it's dirt. It's not very workable conditions, and so that eats into a construction schedule. But what I'd say is overall, with those footnotes, I'm very proud of our team, the engineering division, our consultant team, the contractors that we've worked with to deliver these projects. I mean, I think we're off to a great start, and we'll continue to address those challenges as they arise. And with that, I'd stand for any questions.
You know, one question that sometimes we hear during this time of the year is they started this construction project, it's going well, and then 3 or 4 days in a row, there's nobody there.
Sure.
You want to, because I know, and I had one of those and referred to you, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely.
Why do we let that happen?
So one of the things that we do, we put a date certain for finishing these contracts, and so it's up to the contractor to complete it by that date. We know with the contracting market we have some contractors that have multiple projects, so they evaluate their schedule and resources knowing that end date in mind, and they may temporarily vacate one project to go do other things. The other thing that can happen, a lot of our mill and overlay projects that we're doing in the neighborhoods, we've gotten those questions. We have different phases going on where we actually go in and we do what's called the full depth patching. So we come into the street, we're tearing up certain spots, we're patching that back. We've taken some calls from people of, well, you really didn't fix the problem, and it's the work's not complete yet. They'll come back and actually do a mill and an overlay. The contractor likes to mobilize at one time. Those milling machines are large. They like a lot of production run, and so they try to get all that prep work done in advance. And so to the general public, it may look like they vacated the project, but they're actually will come back and finish. Within our contract, we also have what are called liquidated damages that can be assessed if the contractor does not meet that schedule. And then the other tool that we use is weekly progress meetings on all these construction projects with the contractor to basically say, where are you at? You know, what's your plan for the next week? Where are we on schedule? Where are we on budget? And so those are the things we're doing.
Okay, thank you. I know
Yes,
that,
sir.
and that's helpful to understand when this happens. Councilman Clear?
Is there a benefit for them to finish early? Do we offer incentive for them to finish early?
So that's a great question, and the short answer is no. We currently don't do that. We have that ability within our contract, and that's kind of one of the footnotes that as we look at our contract delivery process, are there certain projects that we want to do what's called an incentive-disincentive practice as opposed to what we currently use as liquidated damages. And so it's just it's a budgetary consideration as well as how much can we afford from an incentive standpoint to bid that for the contractor and then allow them to kind of meet or beat the schedule we set out. But it's a great tool.
Other questions, comments? Councilman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to say anything, but I've had 2 complaints last week and then one this week. I think it would be helpful if the contractor would educate the public, because when they leave just these big spaces in front of the driveways, you know, that they don't, our constituents don't know that they're coming back to finish.
Okay.
And I think that would be helpful. I think I sent the city manager a couple pictures that were sent to me, and I just think if there was just a way that we could educate them, because they're looking at it like I've got this big hole I can't get out of my driveway.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, and I think that would clear up a lot of the matter. They think they're not coming back.
Okay.
I can see what we can do to fix that.
Thank you, Jason.
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you. This is always helpful.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate the update. That concludes the presentations. We will proceed with the roll call.
Mayor Wolgast.
Here.
Council members Hiller.
Here.
Clear. Here. Ortiz. Emerson.
Here.
De La Isla.
Here.
Jensen.
Here.
Schwartz.
Here.
Cohen.
Here.
And Harmon.
Thank you. And council members, we do have one addition to the agenda that you received a copy of. Councilman Clear, if you'd want to introduce that.
This would be a noise exception for the Brass Rail Tavern for August 27th from 8 until midnight, 11:59.
All right, we will add that to the consent agenda unless there is anyone who wishes to have a motion. Anyone just, okay, seeing none, that will be added as agenda or a consent item G. Okay, so we'll proceed with the consent agenda.
A is a board appointment recommending the appointment of Arnold Downing Sr. to the Juvenile Corrections Advisory Board for a term ending August 17, 2019. B is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Doug Snook to the Board of Plumbing Examiners for a term ending August 17, 2018. C is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of Doug Hubble to the Board of Plumbing Examiners for a term ending September 1, 2018. D is a resolution introduced by City Manager Jim Colson authorizing the serving of complimentary alcohol liquor or cereal malt beverage for the First Friday Art Walk events to be held at various businesses as sponsored by Arts Connect, Inc. from October 2016 through October 2017. E are minutes of the regular meeting of August 9, 2016. F, there are no applications. G is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Sandra Clear granting Brass Rail Tavern an exception to the provisions of City of Topeka Code Section 945-150 at seat concerning noise prohibitions.
Okay, that is the consent agenda. Your pleasure. Councilman Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question about letter D. Does this include all businesses that are participating in the art walk?
The answer is yes.
So a private business participating in the art walk that night can give away?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
That is the consent agenda. Your pleasure. Councilman Harmon.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd make a motion to adopt the consent agenda as read.
Okay, and Councilman Jensen seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes, opposed vote no. I vote yes.
Mr. Jensen? We have 10 yes.
10 having voted yes, the consent agenda is approved as read. I would like to introduce Arnold Downing Sr. If you would please stand. He's agreed to appointed to a position on the Juvenile Corrections Advisory Board. Thank you very much. We appreciate your service. Yes. Councilman Ortiz.
If I may, I want you to know this man is in good standings because he's our very own Kia Downing. He belongs to her.
I know.
So we all know that Kia's in good standings. So
That's right.
just wanted to, sorry, not to put you out there, Arnold, just wanted
Good
to.
standing. And Council, I did mention earlier that there is one executive session at the conclusion of the meeting. Okay, that concludes the consent agenda. Moving to the action items, temporary notes.
A is a resolution introduced by City Manager Jim Colson authorizing and directing the issuance of temporary notes Series 2016A general improvements of the City of Topeka, Kansas in the aggregate principal amount of $31,495,000 for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost of, 1, renewing a portion of the Series 2015A temporary notes of said city dated September 15, 2015, and 2, pay a portion of the cost of certain improvement of said city.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll ask Mr. Kaufman to present on this and answer any questions.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. So I'm going to talk about 3 items that you have before you and give you a summary instead of going into each one. So today we went into the bond market and we went in for 2 things. We went in for temporary notes, which are functionally construction loans that we take out to help finance our projects until they're permanently financed. And then we also issued permanent bonds for general obligation projects. So this is different than last week when we issued revenue bonds, which are for utilities. So these are general obligation bonds are more for your general government type operations, streets, public safety items. So we had 2 things. The resolution that you have that you're considering right now is to authorize and direct the issuance of temporary notes in the amount of $31,495,000. And then after that, there's an ordinance to consider the authorization, the issuance of bonds, permanent general obligation bonds in the amount of $22,705,000. And then a step after that, there is a resolution also for those general obligation bonds that prescribe the terms and agreements with the buyers of those bonds. So today, with the assistance of Columbia Capital, Jeff White and Kaylin Dwyer, and Kaylin's here, along with our bond counsel, Phil Wolf, who's also present and available for any questions. We conducted a competitive sale in the market today. We got the bids very early today. The packet, the number that's put in the resolution in the packet always changes based on the actual pricing of the bonds today. That's why there's a little bit of difference in the numbers if you see those. We couldn't be at the market in a better time right now. A lot of it we can thank to Brexit that have really dropped the rates down within the past 2-3 months. We continue to go on a 15-year track for most of our GOs, which will help us to continue to pay down principal in a faster manner. S&P also confirmed us with a AA positive outlook. Again, we continue to receive the top ratings that we can for management category. And then also another key indicator, which is important to have, is reserves. So we continue to have strong budgetary flexibility because of our 22% reserve level, which is a good indicator for our bond rating. You should have a summary page in front of you that summarizes the results of the day. So I'm going to start on the top left. The top left are the general obligation bonds. You can see Robert Baird was the winner there at 1.9233%. We by far exceeded pre-pricing expectations for those bonds, and we're very pleased with those results. Then over to on the right-hand side of the page, you'll see the temporary notes for the $31.495 million. We got successful bid there from J.P. Morgan, and that was for 0.7121%. We continue to see good results from bidding. If you go back about 2 years ago, we weren't receiving many bids on our bonds. So a couple of years ago, we only received 2, so we're seeing more competitive bidding. Also in the general obligation bonds, that's the same case. We're seeing more bids there. That's a trend that we want to continue to see, and a lot of that's based on our bond ratings and also better being more accurate and timely with our financial information, getting that out to investors as quick as we can. With that, I'm going to stand for any questions that you may have.
Are there questions on either of these? Councilman Clare?
On the temp note 2016A, when it says that where the background and the approval would fund one neighborhood project, one fire station improvement, Forest Street, what exactly, which neighborhood project, what fire station improvement?
Councilmember Clear, included in your packet, there's information that has it broken down by each category. So you have temp notes on the left-hand side and then general obligation bonds on the right-hand side. Those are broken down by those same categories. So I'm not going to walk through the list right now, but if you have any questions about any of the projects, I'm sure that we have people available who can answer any of those.
You see that, yeah, the very back page.
When was this, has this been set for a long time? Did someone just come up with this?
Councilmember Clear, all those projects are approved in the capital improvement plan. So on a quarterly basis, we meet and we walk through each of those projects to see where they're at and how they're doing. Once we get closer to January and March and June, we continue to look at those and what we need to finance for the current year. So we have temporary notes, which are projects that are still in construction or design or in preliminary phases that we think we need money on. And then the permanent bonds are projects that are either complete or will be complete within the next 6 months.
Okay, thank you.
And it's that process we go through, the temporary notes and the general obligation bonds, two different aspects that we do generally this time of the year, once a year, that we go through this process. Any other questions on this or any part of it? Yeah, Councilman Cohen?
Thank you, Mayor. Are we refinancing, or are we just letting out new debts?
Councilmember Cohen, there's no refinancing including within this package. So it's just new bonds, new money for current and ongoing projects.
Okay, other questions? Councilman Ortiz?
Well, I know we don't want to talk about it, but this says for Fire Station 13.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Because we don't
Councilmember
have a Fire Station 13.
Councilmember Ortiz, that project has been temporary noted since 2012.
Exactly. Jim, can you tell me a little bit?
Yeah, we will be bringing forward a plan for the construction of Fire Station 13. I think we've addressed a lot of issues. We're not ready, we're not done yet, but we're going to come forward. But what that does is you temp note it until you finally actually build it and then put it into the permanent financing structure. So this is really the only way to handle it until the construction's done and the specific costs are known.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Other questions? Seeing none, your pleasure, if we have before us the resolution on the temporary notes. Councilman Ortiz moves to approve. Councilman Harmon seconds. Any discussion? Councilwoman Schwartz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been advised I should be abstaining on this vote since I am the trustee of Kay McFarland's estate, and the garden is also going to be in part of this.
And it's one of the issues, one included in the temporary notes. Okay. A discussion. If not, all those in favor vote yes. Opposed, vote no. I vote yes.
So we have 9 yes, Ms. Schwartz abstaining.
9 having voted yes, the resolution on temporary notes is approved. We go to item B, the general obligation bonds. Clerk would read.
B is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Jim Colson authorizing the issuance of $22,705,000 aggregate principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2016B of the City of Topeka, Kansas, under the authority of KSA 10-101 to 125 inclusive, KSA 12-6A01 at SEEK, and Charter Ordinance Number 89 of the city, all as amended.
Okay, we really had these three described together, A, B, and C. Are there questions concerning the general obligation bonds? Councilman Ortiz? It's been moved to approve the general obligation bonds. Deputy Mayor DeLisla seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes. Opposed, vote no. I vote yes.
We have 10 yes.
And having voted yes, the ordinance is approved. We go to item C, the resolution.
C is a resolution introduced by City Manager Jim Colson prescribing the form and details of General Obligation Bond Series 2016B of the City of Topeka, Kansas, in the aggregate principal amount of $22,705,000, the issuance of which was authorized by the city pursuant to its ordinance adopted and approved August 16, 2016, and authorizing certain other documents and action in connection with the issuance of the bonds.
All right, it's the third of the three, which is the implementation of the actual what we just passed. Is there any discussion or questions? Deputy Mayor DeLisla moves. Councilwoman Ortiz seconds to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes. Opposed, vote no. I vote yes.
We have 10 yes.
And having voted yes, the resolution is approved. We go to item D, the resolution on improvement district.
D is a resolution introduced by City Manager Jim Colson setting the public hearing to consider the advisability of establishing a community improvement district, CID, for the Cyrus Hotel at 920 South Kansas Avenue, as more specifically described herein.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to have Mr. Kaufman step forward and just provide a very quick overview as to what we're actually doing tonight, which is actually setting the public hearing date. But also, I just want to make reference that Mr. Foster and his team are in the audience.
Mr. Kaufman.
Mayor and members of the council. So last week, we had a discussion item on CID that's been requested downtown from 912 to 924 South Kansas Avenue. So I'm going to go over real quick the process again. So earlier this month, we received a petition from the property owner to create a community improvement district. That's been received. We had the discussion last week. So the next step really is to pass a resolution to set a public hearing. So that's what we're asking you tonight, is just to pass a resolution that would set a public hearing for September 6th. At that time, a public hearing would be held. After the public hearing is held, then you could consider the approval of the district and the of the district.
Okay. Are there questions for Mr. Kaufman? Seeing none, we have one person signed to speak, Matt Pavarni.
I'll withdraw.
All right, he's withdrawn his interest in speaking. Councilman DeLisa. Deputy Mayor DeLisa.
Thank you, Mayor Wilgus. At this time, I would like to make a motion for approval.
She moves to approve the resolution. Councilwoman Hiller seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes. Opposed vote no. I vote yes.
We have 10 yes.
10 having voted yes, the resolution setting the hearing date of September 6th is approved. And we move on with the next item, ordinance on an annexation.
E is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Jim Colson annexing land to the city of Topeka, Kansas, in accordance with KSA 12520, located at 6626 Southwest Huntoon Street within unincorporated Shawnee County, Kansas, and adjacent to the city of Topeka corporate limits, and said land being annexed for all city purposes.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Fyander last week provided an overview in the work session pertaining to this. He's available to provide a very brief overview as to this particular project and answer any questions that this body may have.
All right. The overview.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. As you heard last week, this annexation staff will be recommending approval on. This is something that the city can provide services in an affordable manner. All 5 of our services helps the city grow in a compact manner. And the requirement or the request has come from the property owner themselves. They're improving the property. They need to connect to city water and sewer, which requires the annexation. They have consented, and so we do recommend your approval.
Are there questions for Mr. Fyander? Seeing none, Deputy Mayor DeLisa. Move to approve. Councilman Clare seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes. Opposed vote no. I vote yes.
We have 10 yes.
And having voted yes, the ordinance for the annexation is approved. We go to item F, memorandum.
F is approval of a joint memorandum of agreement concerning group health care cost sharing with the labor unions.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This body had an opportunity to be educated on this particular item, and we understand that there are a tremendous amount of complexities associated with it. We have 3 people, Ms. Russell, Brandon, and Catherine, that are available that are going to provide a brief overview and then answer questions, and we'll start out with Ms. Russell.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. What will be before you this evening is a 3-year agreement on the health care cost share that is a tentative agreement between all of the city's unions in the city of Topeka. It includes a cost share percentage for employee only of 75% paid by the city and 25% paid by the employee, with an opportunity of a 15% wellness incentive discount off of those premiums if those individuals choose to participate. For the family dependent tiers for 2017, the city will pay 60%, in 2018, 37%, 2019, 35%, with an opportunity for a 10% wellness incentive premium discount. Also included in this agreement is a reduction in the deductibles for both the base and the buy-up plan of 10% each year, beginning in 2017. And there is also availability for employees who are not members of the city's health plan to have access to the city's health and wellness clinic for $50 per month. There is a actual anticipated financial savings of $55,000 for the 2017 year. It then does have an added expense anticipated in the 2018 and 19 years, and that expense is based on the enhanced city contributions toward the dependent tiers of coverage and the reduction in the deductible each of those years. I do recommend approval this evening. It has been ratified by all of the city's union groups, and certainly would stand for any questions at this time.
Are there questions on the health benefits, group health benefits? Seeing none, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have any questions, and one of the reasons is that I just wanted to give all of you who participated in this process a lot of kudos. Apparently it was very difficult negotiation at first, and you brought it around. And then further, you made the affirmative effort to get hold of each of us to see if we had questions, and I appreciated your explanation.
Thank you very much.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you. Your pleasure. Councilwoman Hiller
We'll be happy to move for approval.
moves to approve. Deputy Mayor Elisla seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes. Those vote no. I vote yes.
We have 10 yes.
10 having voted yes, the joint memorandum agreement is approved. Go to item G, resolution on the property taxation.
G is a resolution introduced by City Manager Jim Colson expressing the property taxation policy of the City of Topeka governing body with respect to financing the annual budget of 2017.
Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm asking Nikki Lee to come forward and provide an overview and answer questions.
Good evening, governing body. This resolution in front of you is the first step towards meeting the intent of the updated property tax lid bill that we've been discussing. First of all, just want to distinguish that this is not the public vote portion that we've been discussing, but rather just the resolution. This is similar to truth and taxation of prior use. You might be familiar with that kind of legislation. The resolution is recommended by the state since 2017 taxes are higher than the 2015 Consumer Price Index. The last time that this governing body had to approve a similar, it was actually an ordinance, was in the 2014 budget. We haven't had to do it for the last few years. So this is the first time that you're seeing something like this.
Okay, are there questions? You understand what we're doing? This is required by the tax lid, that we have to state this, even though we're not under the tax lid until 2017, this portion, this process we do have to do. And
Correct.
it's just a pro forma, in a sense.
Sure, Mayor. As you said, the actual vote portion of the property tax lid doesn't go into impact until the 2018 budget, but since it was as of July 1st, 2017, we believe that the intent of the law was that this kind of a resolution would need to be passed. And again, this is not related to no one's raising the mill levy. There is no property tax increase, but since we're simply collecting a higher property tax than prior years, then this is recommended that we do it through the state.
Councilman Harmon.
Is there a motion on the floor?
No, there is not.
Okay, I'd make a motion to adopt the resolution.
All right, been moved to approve the resolution. Deputy Mayor Elisla seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor vote yes. Opposed vote no. I vote yes.
We have 10 yes.
10 having voted yes, the resolution and taxation policy is approved. We go to item H.
H is an appropriation ordinance introduced by City Manager Jim Colson, approving and adopting the operating budget for the calendar year 2017 and appropriating the amounts for the purpose set forth therein.
I understand the Budget Committee has a report. Defer to the Deputy Mayor for the report.
Thank you, Mayor Wolgass. The report is rather short. Just wanted to let the body know that on the 5th of July, the Budget Committee went ahead and approved unanimously to pass this budget onto the body of the council. We have had public discussion. We have had a lot of discussion with regards to the body. And at this point in time, I would entertain a motion for approval.
All right, that is the Budget Committee's report. It is received, and you are moving approval of the budget. We have before us that. Councilman Jensen seconds. Correct. Okay, so we have before us the budget. And if there is discussion, it is appropriate to have that. We have some people who have signed to speak. But council members, if there's any discussion you wish to have first, that would be appropriate to do so. Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we need to amend it based on the adjusted numbers that the staff gave us after the health plan was considered?
My understanding is it comes to us with those amendments. With the amendments that were made, it was moved out with the amendments. Yeah, City Manager.
And I may look at Nikki, just this, the health plan discussion and those costs have no impact on the budget whatsoever. We are going to manage that all internally through our internal funds. So the budget did not change based on that discussion.
And the amendments made are included in this budget.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, governing body, I would just echo what the city manager just said. There's kind of two topics. One would be the amendments. I think you're talking about the Budget Committee amendments that were made back in July, and those are in the budget. And then in addition, in mid-July, we received information which was solidified with the action you just took related to health care, that our health care rates are expected to be higher than what was originally budgeted. But as was explained to you all, since we've already set the maximum taxes, we will be able to absorb that higher increase with the budget that you all set without having to make any adjustments at this point.
All right. Is there any discussion? We will go to public comment. Councilman Hiller.
If I could just clarify with Nikki's affirmation, that what we finally learned with the final staff recommendation was that if needed, that extra money would come out of the balance reserve in the health insurance fund. I just didn't want the public to think we had an extra $500,000 floating around in the budget that was extra. Thank you.
Okay. No other questions? We have two persons to speak. First is Joseph Ledbetter. Now.
Good evening, governing body. Even though I spoke about some of this last week, I'm going to talk about some of my concerns again. There may be different people watching. First off, having been at Highcrest helping those people for the last several years, that neighborhood is very grateful to the police department, and I have the greatest respect for our police chief and our thin blue line that is keeping the city peaceful and orderly, and I support any part of this budget that helps them, and I've been told it's adequate. That's what they've told me. The second thing I'm going to bring up is last week there was an organization talking, it was called JUMP, it was talking about inadequate housing in Topeka, it's talking about substandard housing in Topeka, and 7,000 units. I would probably not disagree with that number, seeing what I've seen as I travel around the city. But I think the biggest component that this community is too soft on and has not been able to focus on adequately to the concerns of Highcrest, which wants more code enforcement and said so in their neighborhood plan, and to the satisfaction of a lot of people I talk to in this city, in all parts of this city, that we want better code enforcement. We believe, I've looked at their budget, they have enough inspectors. They have almost $1.7 million to do their mission. It appears adequate. What I'm concerned about is inconsistencies. One landlord getting away with, it just seems like the most fundamental things a landlord should be doing, and they're not doing, habitability issues. Last week, it was reported to me we had dead dogs in a house over in High Crest. The smells is what alerted the neighbors to finally get code enforcement and other people involved. The owner eventually showed up and evidently got that out. But these kind of things are very intolerable for neighbors to put up with. And who else are you going to call except code enforcement? There is nobody. So my biggest concern is not just about High Crest now, but I'm seeing some of these patterns practiced in other parts of the city, and it appears to be spreading. And one of the houses in a neighborhood I've got a relative in, a very close relative, the house had boa constrictors in it, in the basement, had rats in the basement for the boa constrictors, evidently, and large dogs were being brought in on some kind of rescue mission by these people. And this was a landowner owned property. The people weren't mowing the lawn. The very nice neighborhood was just being totally disrupted by one house. Now, think about what that does to property values. Think about what that does to your tax base. And we're talking budget here. You cannot diminish these neighborhoods and not have a consequence. You're going to have people start moving out that you want to stay in the city. You're going to have young people moving out that have bought houses because they don't want the dangerous dogs next to their kids. They are concerned about the different issues and the feeling that it's not being addressed timely, not quickly enough. I asked one of the inspectors recently, today, I said, well, how much due process do you need to, I'm going to ask for more time.
How much time?
2 minutes.
Councilman
Yes, sir.
Moves to time. Councilman Cohen seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes. Opposed vote no. I vote yes.
We have 10 yes.
Please continue.
So, well, I've got so many directions here. I've got to wrap this up. But when we have neighborhoods that are diminishing in value or at risk of diminishing in value, and then we have main thoroughfares like 21st Street, where at the south end of the Expo Center, we've got a building that a former Sonic drive-in that's just been sitting there for years unoccupied. They never mow the lawn. The property owners next to it have refurbished their property, and yet two blocks down the street, we've got yet 2 more buildings that the windows are out. The 2 buildings are just derelict, and yet the person that owned them got rid of them 2 years ago. People were complaining about him, but he's gone. He's not owner of those properties anymore. So the problem is not always the property owner, it's code enforcement, not enforcing the codes. Now, think about, you've got the Expo Center where you're going to spend $45 million redoing this building. And yet at the south entrance, you've got to look at this blight as you come and go out of the Expo Center. My point is, code enforcement is economic development. This is a very important part of this city's mission. And I know years ago it was done by the county and enforced by the DA, so it was pretty hard to get away with violating codes years ago. But we have got to address this. It is economic development, and you don't want to lose these homeowners who don't want to put up with this stuff next to their homes or down the block. So we don't want the whole city looking like that. So I'm imploring you that this is an important part of the budget, and I very much support it, but I very much support a new direction. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker is Teresa Miller.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back, Mr. Councilman Harmon. It's nice to see you. Part of this is not mine, so I'm going to read this. Please don't kill me for reading this. It's someone that handed me this and wanted me to, I'm going to try to cut it short. They feel because the council people want a raise, they feel that keep saying it's like a full-time job. If it's going to be treated like a full-time job, then you need to answer your phones all day long. If they call you 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock, whatever, answer your phone. The other thing they would say is that a lot of other cities have term limits on city council and mayors. You need to think about that. The other thing they also said was 4 council members and our present mayor cut Mayor Bunton's pay in half. And the other thing they wanted to bring up is that you got to understand, that I'm saying don't kill me, is that a lot of people in your city, and me included, I'm on a fixed income. I have only had a raise 4 times in 10 years on my Social Security. So when everything else goes up, I suffer. But for me now, what I'm asking is, I'm not against you guys getting raises. I'm against what you're asking for. 1.5% to 2%, I can see. The rest of it, I've heard from my people in my area, which is North Topeka West, are not for any more than that. It's not saying that we don't want you to have a raise. We would like to see you have a raise. The other thing that I'm really stressing about, and it is really a big concern, is the safety of my pedestrians, the safety of my bicycle riders, and the safety of my automobile people that are driving down Tyler. I'm going to push this till I beat it like a dead horse. You guys, for safety reasons, need to figure out how to put that project somewhere in your budget and push another project aside that is not as scary as Tyler Street. Because here's the deal. You want to do that national park. I've got a gold mine sitting in my NIA that is called the Curtis Cemetery. Pappin's Ferry people's families are buried in it. 2 of them that you are drawing attention to are buried in that cemetery. So we need to have better roads to that cemetery, because it should be get included somehow in this national park. I'm trying to work on grants to better the cemetery itself, because it has been vandalized. It has been really in bad shape. So I'm trying to figure out grants to help in that situation. But you also have to understand, people have elected you. Our NRAs would openly welcome you to our NRAs and work with you. I work as a president. I am on several committees. That's of my choosing, because I feel by being on those committees, it betters my community. And the more communities I could be on actually helps you guys. And because I can score stuff that you guys won't have to take care of, and I take that burden for you. So that's what we're about, and I think we need to start working a little more with our communities back and forth, because there's not enough of that being done. I know I'm forgetting something else, but that's basically what I would like to say this evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, Councilman Ortiz.
Thank you. I would like to clarify something to Ms. Miller. We could not cut Mr. Mayor Bunton's salary in half. His salary was, when we voted the city manager form of government, that's when it got cut because of his duties. And so we, as council members, could not cut his salary in half.
Remember, this did not come from me.
Well, I know, but you're the messenger, so I'm giving you that message that we couldn't do it, and it wasn't done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Completes the public comment. We have before us the appropriation ordinance. Is there any discussion? Any further discussion? If not, this is the motion to adopt the appropriation, which includes the 2017 operating budget that was approved by the Budget Committee. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor vote yes, opposed vote no. I vote yes.
We have 8 yes, Ortiz and Harmon voting no.
8 having voted yes, the appropriation ordinance is approved. Councilman Keller?
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's important. We had some clarification from staff, and I think for the public to know as well, that there was quite some debate amongst this council as well as with the public about the issue of whether the raises would occur, and that all that was voted on tonight was budget authority to do that. That has to be done by ordinance, and there will be time for, I hope, for people to weigh in, but certainly there will be a public process and public discussion before those raises would actually be voted through if that occurs.
Yeah, just to clarify, there has to be an ordinance to implement this. It's in the budget, but then a separate ordinance before it is implemented would be correct. And perhaps that would be in another month or two that would take place. That completes the action items for this evening. We go to the non-action items. And the first is a discussion, and actually it's a report back from the committee on several issues sent to them, the dangerous dog merchant guard ordinance, and Councilman Ortiz is the chair of that committee, if you want to speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had one meeting on the dangerous dog ordinance, and I had told different people in our committee that we would probably need this would be a two-part meeting. And so our next meeting is set up for September 1st. Awesome. September 1st, that's when our second meeting will be. I don't see Charles Kitt in here. He had made a few changes. I apologize, I was not prepared and I didn't bring them, but we'll be meeting again to let everybody know our final, and then we'll come back again as well as that. We have not done anything with the guard ordinance because I felt like the dangerous dog ordinance was more important, and he gave us material, and I wanted to make sure that everybody understood what we were facing against, because I know me and Councilwoman Haler before worked tirelessly on this, and we thought we had covered every base, but for some reason we didn't. So that's my report.
Yeah, and actually, when we should point out that when these issues are sent to the committee, they are there a certain period of time, then they come automatically back to the council. So in a sense, we're handling it in that manner tonight. So updating, and they can then continue to be in the council for, I believe it's 60 days, and then they'll come back automatically again if the committee hasn't taken action. So council members, do you want to comment any more on this, on the issue? We do have one person signed up to speak, and that's Joseph Ledbetter.
Governing body, in case I can't make one of these committee meetings during the day, they kind of conflict with my schedule. I'm just going to go ahead and make some more comments. In looking at this ordinance and the changes that have been proposed, rather than tell you the wording to put in here, I'm going to tell you the concerns I hear and the concerns I have. And that is that very large dogs can kill a kid, and they can kill them quick. And when you have people with large animals that are in backyards with only 4-foot fences, shepherds, boxers, any number of large animals can clear a fence in seconds. And what bothers me, and what I've been seeing, and I've been hearing from people, including relatives, complaining about this issue in Topeka, is as much as people love their pets, they have to realize that other people have rights too. The rights to live, the rights for their children to be safe and not be mauled, the rights for kids to play in a park that's adjacent and not have animals go into pack behavior and run these kids down like happened over in Chesney Park earlier this year. And police officers absolutely have a right to use force to subdue those animals, and they should. I don't think we should have to be worrying about our children being safe in this city, and yet we have to, as long as people keep large dogs in the city. And I would ask that people start thinking a lot more about what they're bringing into these neighborhoods, and are they adequately enclosing these animals. And just a little comment here. I've also lived on a farm, and There's a farm rule that once an animal hurts another animal, draws blood, or a human being, you put that dog down, because that dog's going to do it again. And it's just true. That's what they do. They're not that far removed from wolves. Some of these animals are just gigantic compared to the children that are in the neighborhoods, that just may be riding their bike, or chasing a ball into the yard. They have no idea what's awaiting them in ambush with one of these animals. So rather than get graphic, I would just like you to strengthen this ordinance. I don't think it's strong enough. And I don't want to tie the hands of a judge. I want the judge to put the animals down if they have hurt a human being in any way. And to me, that means drawing blood. If they've broken the skin and drawn blood, as far as I'm concerned, you are probably never going to be able to domesticate that animal again. That's just my opinion. I have trained shepherds, and I would not have them in the city now, but I know people do, and they feel like their animals are under control. That's fine. Just remember, there's a huge liability issue if those animals hurt a child or another human being. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there other discussion, council members? Seeing none, that'll complete the discussion on item A. We go to item B.
B is discussion summarizing the findings of the Topeka Fire Department organizational assessment and recommendations of future actions.
Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. 6 months ago, as the previous chief was entering into retirement, we had selected an interim chief, which was actually a loaned person, to help us take a look with a different set of eyes at our fire department. We assigned to Chief Wayne to come back to this body and to provide an overview in 5 specific areas. What I'd like to do at this point is invite Mr. Wayne to the podium to walk through his presentation, be available for questions. We will be generating a specific report that will be part of the body of work also.
Thank you. Mr. Wayne.
This, by the way, is Mr. Wayne's last meeting, and he will be heading back to Goodyear, Arizona.
I'm going to miss spending Tuesday nights with y'all, that's for sure.
Okay.
Good evening, governing body. As the city manager just stated, it came in 16 months ago. You may have seen something about it in the media during that initial couple of weeks.
A little bit too early.
Missed it.
That joke was purely for my benefit, the ease some of the nerves. So tasked me with 5 key areas to look at and address with an outside pair of eyes. Bringing my experience, education, background allowed me to step in and lead a 245-person fire department and also focus on these 5 key areas. I would like to thank Mr. Colson for taking that risk, and I think it has paid off for this department and the continued support from leadership and council throughout my 6 months. Okay, so let's look at those 5 areas. I'm going the wrong way. Do I need to go this way? I got it.
That's better. Here we are.
All right, so the first one, provide department leadership that restores confidence based on operational competence, integrity, and fairness. Restoring confidence based on integrity and fairness starts at the top, starts with me. And I have worked hard to provide that to the department through my actions and through my words. I have found that the men and women of this department are dedicated, compassionate, and want to serve the community to the best of their ability and represent the very best of Topeka. With that being said, let's look at operational competence. We've done a good job, I think, in trying to address these areas, most of them indirectly, but we started conducting after-action reports for significant incidents. It gives us the ability to go in and review those incidents and make training based off of the issues that we find. We've had a few since I've been here: tree fire, farm, second alarm, apartment fire on Fairlawn, and a few more. So we've also enrolled officers in incident command certification, something that's not previously been done. Reduced response to automatic fire alarms from 7 units to 2. improve firefighter safety by improving fireground communications, and SOG development, standard operating guidelines. We've implemented weekly one-on-ones with staff to ensure task completion and also for staff development. Identified the lack of technology early on. So it was like stepping back in time for me as I got here. But fortunately, with a good IT director and a plan in place, we're able to make some significant strides, and those would be MDTs and the fire apparatus. That would be a mobile data terminal for, much like the police has. And so we would have increased capability, one being AVL, kind of like a GPS, where we can automatically know where that unit is at all times and dispatch quickly and efficiently and save seconds on response times. Along with that feature is a mapping feature, and we also included a data analysis tool that was never present for the department. So now we can consolidate and look at all that data and really examine it. Integrity. I said bi-weekly meetings with the local 183 or local 83. These were really key for success. Building that relationship early with labor is something that I think is critically important, because without the support of the membership, it's hard to kind of bring about change. We have adopted a participative management approach with them to try to empower the membership. I've maintained approachability and accessibility through an open door policy, meetings with many of the council members and all the county fire chiefs in the rural district. Spent many times and many nights in fire stations eating dinner and talking about the state of Topeka Fire Department. Fairness. Right off the bat, first week, faced with vacancies in some key leadership positions, we went to work developing fair processes that promoted 4 individuals in the management: shift commander, battalion chief, chief of VMS, and a chief of training. Those processes yielded some really incredible results and good personnel that are going to help lead the charge forward. Held department-wide meetings, met with all members to address concerns and issues. And something that has been done in the city of Topeka before was when folks got promoted, I went out personally, and I didn't do all of them, but I did do a lot. Hand them their badge, hand them their helmet, shake their hand, pat them on the back, and tell them job well done, because that type of stuff in my mind goes a long way in the building relationships.
If you don't mind, there's so much in this in your presentation. If we might take a minute, I hate to interrupt, but yet if there are people if there's questions or something on this is phase 1, right? You've completed the first one.
That's first one, correct, sir.
Are there questions or comments on what he's covered so far on this providing art leadership? Okay, that's okay. Councilman Clear?
Well, so how do you measure, how did you measure that you restored the confidence? What was your basis to know that you did that? I mean, I see what you did to try to do that, but how do you know that you did that?
Well, I think that's a great question. Probably for any organization, that's hard to measure, but being accessible and being available to the membership. And I spent a lot of time in stations. I spent a lot of time with local leadership, and so it's not like I'm hiding in my office. So it gives me a good ability to kind of assess where the department's at. And yeah, I haven't reached everybody over the course of 6 months. It's pretty difficult, but the interactions that I have are extremely positive in the respect that there is an established level of confidence that's been based over the last 6 months. So I can only kind of speak to that in my perspective. There may be some folks out there that disagree, and I respectfully disagree with them.
So are you going to give us the results of the survey that was taken?
Sure.
Is that in here somewhere?
I'm working on a comprehensive report that has that survey in it as well. Speaking to, it's kind of a satisfaction survey, so I took the model.
That's why I thought maybe that would answer that question.
No, if you actually look at the results from that survey that was conducted, overall satisfaction is not that great. I mean, it's probably less than 50%, which I expected to be quite higher than it is. But yes, that template was taken from the finance audit that was done a couple years ago. So I just kind of modeled it to fit Topeka Fire.
So did you address the survey results in any of?
In this, no. That was just an added component to get an idea and feel of where the organization was.
But you just took that survey?
Probably 2-3 weeks ago. Correct.
And so that was the overall feeling of the department?
Yes and no. I mean, we had approximately 106 respondents, and with vacancies, we're probably 220-something in overall. So it wasn't 100%.
It was 50%?
Roughly, yes.
But you didn't address it in here?
No.
Why not?
I wish I had now, but because it would be a good tool. So you're right.
Okay.
I overlooked it. That's my mistake.
That's why I was just wondering, because if you're going to try to prove what you did, I was just wondering why you couldn't say, well, this proves you know what I'm saying. Okay, then when you said met with the members with concerns or issues, then what did you do? Help them solve the concerns and issues?
Yeah, we tried to work through as many of those as possible, and creating that open door policy gave the ability to come in and voice their concerns and issues and what they thought was wrong with the department and the direction they wanted to go. I never turned down any meetings in the course of 6 months, and was always willing and very happy to meet with anybody that wanted to share their concerns.
And you said you use fair process for promotion. What are the fair processes?
Those processes consist of, specifically as you look at the training chief, candidates were asked to come in and do presentations.
Okay.
They were asked to come in and do interviews, and in second round of interviews. Those panels were consisted of outside members to bring in a diverse group of folks that had the ability to kind of, from an outside perspective, outside the organization, review candidates.
Is that like a written procedure? Is that like what's supposed to happen?
No, that's just what I'm very accustomed to, so I just adopted past practices within the Valley region to processes here.
So they don't have a written procedure for hiring fairly?
For promotional processes? No, there's one. You bring up a good point, because if you look at standard operating guidelines, that would be something that would need to be developed. And there's a lot of guidelines that still need to be developed, and that's an area of deficiency for the department that needs to really work on.
I think let's go on, because I think some of these will probably be coming up in some of these other
That's all I had.
Okay,
Thank you.
very good. To section 2.
Okay, review and outline a plan to achieve department accreditation. Traditionally, that threshold of success has always been through ISO. ISO gave you a rating. They look at a few key areas within your department, training, and a few other things, and then you get a stamp of ISO rating of 2 or 3, whatever that they come up with. There is over the last 15 to 20 years, the Center of Public Safety Excellence has begun developing an accreditation process. So that accreditation process has now become the gold standard, in which less than 5% of departments nationally are accredited. So what's it mean to be accredited? Becoming an accredited agency means that the department has performed an in-depth analysis of all applicable standards and best practices, has identified performance objectives based on data, and established benchmarks with realistic goals that are measurable and achievable. The department will invest a tremendous amount of time and money to become an accredited agency in the next 3 to 5 years. It's successful, but that process of self-evaluation has to begin today, and we've been doing that for the last 6 months, and that really needs to continue. So 4 steps to become an accredited agency. One is to become a registered agency with the Center of Public Safety Excellence. This is where you start to build your team, start to build your documents, your overall strategic plan, your standards of cover, your community risk reduction, and your self-assessment manual, which is probably about 1,500 questions long. So as you begin to develop that body of work, because where we are within the Topeka Fire Department, I recommend utilizing a technical advisory program to help assist and mentor the department along through that process. Next step is to apply for applicant agency. This is where you really start to compile all your documents and then prep for that site visit. That site visit will be step 3, where the peer assessment team comes in and they utilize best practices and evaluate every aspect of the fire department. So at the point where you accept your official accreditation, that self-assessment, that continuous evaluation process doesn't stop there. You have to do work each and every year in order to maintain that accreditation. Then every 5 years, then you do a reaccreditation. So then at that point, you would have another site visit that would validate what you're doing.
Time for a few questions.
Sure.
Councilman Schwartz.
Thank you, Your Honor. So where are we at with this process? You've outlined become a registered agency, then 2, apply for applicant agency status, 3, site visit with CPSE, and then 4, accept. Where are we at?
We are below step 1, so 0.5.
And what is your estimation for the length of time it's going to take Topeka to become accredited?
If you go all in, you could do the process in 18 months, but that's a tremendous amount of work in a short period of time. Standard is that you build a good team, you spread out the work. So utilizing that team approach, you would anticipate 3 and maybe even 5 years until completion.
And do you feel you've started that process in your 6 months?
Yeah, what I've asked specifically training chief and EMS chief as they start to build those programs and become program managers is look at end goal states, utilizing accreditation and those categories as those end goals. So we look at what it's going to look like at the end as we go through achievement. So that'll help us begin to develop and put those pieces together for accreditation.
Okay, one final question. Our police department is accredited.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you talked with Chief Brown about that accreditation process?
No, I have not, but I came from 2 agencies that have been accredited, actually 1 that's been accredited, gone through multiple accreditation processes and reaccreditation processes, and currently leading that charge with Goodyear Fire upon my return next week.
Okay. Thank you.
City Manager.
Yeah, thank you. So Mayor and council member, so I've had several conversations with Chief about the process there. When Chief Wayne talked about the 5% of the agencies in the country are accredited, that's about the same in the police world too. And what we've talked about, as Chief Wayne was talking about the timeframes associated, I think sometimes you go, well, geez, that's a long time to wait. But what Chief Brown has shared with me several times is that process of going through it and the internal review really starts to pay some results internally. So where I think that Chief Wayne probably hasn't had as many of those conversations because he was working on specific direction that I had provided in terms of accreditation, Chief Brown's been definitely part of this conversation all the way through. But thank you for the question.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I too have been through this from the point that we are at right now, the fire department, with another organization. How many people from the fire department were involved with you in this process of learning about what the CPSE standards and accreditation were?
For Topeka?
Yes.
We've talked about, like I said, as the training chief and the EMS chief really start to rebuild those, or for EMS, build a program, we talked about what that end goal looks like. So utilizing each of those categories within that self-assessment manual to then really drill down and look at what the end result looks like. Out of this category for EMS, there are probably 25 to 30 areas that you have to address. So if you have those areas in your forefront as you develop your programs, then it really helps you kind of design something that's going to be beneficial and meet the needs of accreditation.
So if I could clarify, 2 people in the
Yeah, I would say, we've been talking about accreditation since I've got here as a topic, and so multiple staff meetings. We're even started developing standards of cover. Now that we have a data analysis tool, we've brought a couple folks in from the field that want to help design and create that document, but that has been all of staff that's been participating in that as well.
If I could, I mean, and I know how daunting it is when you go into accreditation for the first time, but do you think that the standards are reasonable for our city to meet And how, like in a percentage, how far along the way are we, do you think?
For accreditation,
And I know it's humbling for those who haven't, a low number is often what you have.
no, I think right now it's more in the conceptual stage. We've done some considerable work on the standards of cover, which is just one document of 4 that needs to be created, and that's probably in the 15 to 20% range of completion. So there's a significant amount of work that needs to be done.
And the question before that was, do you think these are reasonable standards for us as Topeka to take on as our goals?
Yes. What accreditation really does for you is simply this. You have documents that outline your programs and procedures. Do you do what you say you do, and can you validate it?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll go to phase 3.
Okay, review operational readiness, resource allocation, including a deep dive in the training, promotions, overtime, callbacks, and reporting. Okay, so as I stated earlier, I've been on the scene of multiple incidents within the last 6-month period. Each of those incidents provided insight into operational readiness and became the basis for several recommendations that you'll see. Overall, in terms of operational readiness in respect to firefighting, these guys probably do as good a firefighting job as I've seen anywhere. Tactically, they're extremely sound, and they have the volume of fires that gives them the ability to really kind of hone those skills. However, as you advance in kind of complexity of the incident, that overall strategic command level function has to be addressed. There are some weaknesses there. It shows in accountability and scene management, 2 things that you don't want to risk on a fast-moving, complex incident. So along with that, like I said earlier, we've implemented a new process of after-action reports, and those help us identify those issues that we can train to. This practice, coupled with an aggressive training plan, must be continued to refine and improve operations. Resource allocation. The study was completed in February 2016, just prior to my arrival. Study provided recommendations, been reviewed by staff throughout my assignment. Carrying around this station study has been a concern, so we've wanted to address it, and recently had a meeting with PD, GIS, the city manager, E-Board, and fire department staff to look at these issues and see if we can come up with some resolutions moving forward. And as city manager said, he will brief you on that. So deep dive in the training. Probably one of our most critical areas that needs to be addressed. Training division has taken on new leadership with Chief Kevin Fleury. Prior to that, it had been vacant for about 8 months. So one can argue that the most important position as it relates to firefighter safety is the training chief and what they provide to the department. They have some deficiencies, and they need to be addressed immediately. Some of this work has already begun, but much needs to be done to get the department where it needs to be. Specifically, one of those areas is an annual training plan. Typically, we train at the company level and don't train to the individual level. So that has left some gaps in individuals not meeting the necessary requirements based off of NFPA recommendations. And that's probably in the 25 to 30% range of folks that aren't meeting those minimum requirements. So Chief Fleury is aggressively addressing that and rolling out a plan to do an individual training-based program for individuals versus being a company-based program. Another issue is officer development. When I say officers, is lieutenants, fire captains, battalion chiefs, shift commanders, and admin chiefs. This development as it relates to certifications and training. Personnel able to promote to the ranks without any education or certification requirements. So that in itself has lent itself to kind of a predicament that we're currently in. For example, an audit of certifications for fire captains, only 2.4% of those 54 have the appropriate level of certifications based off NFPA standards and recommendations. Those would be Fire Officer 1, Fire instructor 1, incident safety officer, and incident command, to name a couple of those. So we haven't been doing a really good job of bringing folks up where they need to be. So again, another task for our training chief to address is implement a really aggressive training plan so we can start to bring these certifications up for each of these ranks, and it includes all ranks, that has to be done in order for us to move forward. And it's not going to happen overnight. I think that process would be 3 to 4 years. My hope is within the next negotiation with Local 83, we start to implement requirements for promotion, education, certifications, and those type of things to help raise the bar so that we're doing that front work instead of way ahead of time, preparing folks for those positions rather than trying to do it on the back end. The department has done a great job of getting folks through National Incident Management courses, NIMS courses, but those courses really focus on the large incident and don't really provide the necessary level of skill for incident management at the local level. Again, like I said, I think that's a concern for us in a couple different areas and really problematic. So there's 121 officers, and we need to get all officers through that training. And we've already started that process right now. I think we're enrolling 34 of those this week into Blue Card Incident Command training. It's 50 hours of online training followed by 3 days of evaluations. So when we put folks out on the street in those command positions, we know that they're going to manage scenes appropriately and safely, and it's the best interest of our firefighters. While the department should focus on baseline certifications and ensuring training is complete, an audit of degrees, associates and bachelor's degrees, has yielded kind of not great results overall in the organization. There's probably 25% that have an associate's or a bachelor's degree. Of the command staff, when I say command staff, that's shift commanders, admin chiefs, only 1 of 13. So we've got to do a better job of preparing our folks for these positions and provide the resources, whatever we can, to help them succeed, because I think those degrees are critical for management level positions. Okay, everybody's favorite, overtime, callback, and sick leave usage. So we looked at overtime, callback, and sick leave usage, and real the fire department's practices are producing an increased amount of overtime as of today. The department spent over $80,000 in the month of July to constant staff all apparatus, which then exceeded our callback budget, our line item budget of $221,000. So we are in the deficit in that line item. With vacancies not to be filled until the end of December, the department will exceed callback budget by an estimated $250,000. Despite being overspent in this line item, the department has historically come in under budget overall. So sick leave usage. The department averages about 2.8 sick leave per day, and just kind of give you some of those dynamics. Spikes on weekends. Fire captains are the most that use the most amount of sick time in comparison to other rank. Sick leave usage over the course of the year spikes in the summer months and during the holidays. These patterns could assist in identifying trends and use for management to examine. Vacancies. Currently, we're at 16. Along with sick leave use, appear to be the 2 main factors that affect that callback line item. Vacancies are a result of the department not having an eligibility list to hire from in a recruitment process. Both have been delayed for several years. Proper planning would not allow that to get above total of 6 vacancies. In order to do that, we'd have to have a process complete and an eligibility list established by March of every year. There are additional measures that can be taken, and they're a little bit more drastic, but there's departments that utilize them. We could create a matrix that would say if we reach a certain threshold in our callback line item, that we start to implement certain measures. Those measures would be like, for example, we restrict vacation, or we send the training officers back to fill positions on the rigs, or we send the inspectors back to fill positions on the rig. So we were able to minimize that effect to the callback line item. And lastly, what nobody would want to do is to shut down units as a result of the staffing levels. So I think it's good practice as a department to go through that exercise and develop that matrix so we have a clear understanding of what the impact can be. Within the Local 83 MOU, there is a provision that allows for individuals to be counseled and subject to review. That threshold is half of what firefighters accrue and sick over the course of the year. So if you accrue at different rates as you get more time on the job. So most senior captain is going to accrue at 100. That threshold is 144 hours. So then we're able to look at that and identify those that are over that 144-hour threshold. For younger firefighters, that's probably substantially lower number because they don't accrue at that same rate. But the provision of the contract gives us the ability to review and then counsel. We haven't been doing that. And so consequently, there are 59 firefighters that are over that threshold. So if we were able to address that with an aggressive plan to review and counsel with those folks, I imagine we'd have a significant impact on that callback line item. Only two more, guys.
Is that complete? Okay. Let me see if there are questions. Councilwoman Schwartz.
Thank you, Your Honor. I found in our ordinances that there's a promotion board, section A6-17, hereby created a promotion board which shall consist of 5 members of the department appointed by the chief of the department. 3 members of such promotion board shall be appointed for terms of 2 years, and 2 members shall be appointed for terms of 3 years. The chief of the department shall serve as an ex officio chairman of said board. So you covered promotions here. Are we doing that?
We have a board that, civil service board, that's for new firefighter applicants.
This is for promotions.
Then no, we're not utilizing that as current practice.
So in essence, we're violating our own ordinance. I guess I'm going to refer that to legal.
Yeah.
I'll send you the ordinance.
Yeah. Okay. Are there other questions on this section of 3? Councilman Cohen?
Thank you, Mayor. Just curious, how many new certifications have firefighters received since you started?
So there's a fire officer class that starts here in the next week or so. We had a lot of folks interested. I think it was upwards of 21, and the class can only handle 15. So now we have almost 9 on a waiting list to get through that fire officer course. The newer generation of firefighters understand and really have demonstrated that the value in that education certification. And so now we just at a balance and trying to figure out how we get everybody up to the levels they need to be.
Okay.
Well, yeah, you addressed this seniority system. Is that still the best system for Topeka as receiving promotion? Personally, no. I think you can do a blend, some type of assessment center with seniority definitely playing a factor. But my preference is that it's not complete seniority based. But that's not something that I can decide or make some decision on. That would be something that would be discussed and then negotiated with labor.
Okay. Councilman Hiller?
Thank you, Mayor. You've covered a lot of ground, particularly in this one. My question would be, what happens when you go? So are these recommendations in policy format already? Is there a trail of, will you be leaving policies and procedures based on what you described that you've discussed with I'm sure the firefighters as well as the city manager?
And I think, yeah, that would also be to a city manager.
Well, I just want to know if
Question.
it's documented.
It's documented in a sense where I've created the report for the city manager that's identified all these issues and then recommendations going forward. In terms of formal documentations as SOP, SOGs, no, those are not developed, and those will take time to develop. That's something that desperately needs to happen, not only in personnel and HR issues, but for all across the board for the fire department. So the template that's produced for the city manager to act upon would be my report to him as a kind of a strategic plan and final recommendations.
So that amount of detail will be in what you transfer to him. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Claire.
So at the beginning, I think you said like the response time, the reduced responses.
Correct.
So when you leave, that will like stop?
No, that one actually went out in memo form, so it's a numbered memorandum. So that is part of practice at this point. Memos need to go from memo into an SOG, and that has not happened yet.
So some things will stay that you implemented, stay active.
I hope they all stay active.
But some won't.
So I doubt that that's a true statement. I mean, it's my expectation.
I thought you just said no to her and yes to me.
I'm not so sure I understand what.
Maybe I didn't understand what you said. Okay, he said yes, this one went out in the memo, so that would keep happening.
Yes.
So let me just say, having Chief Wayne here was for a specific purpose. That was to take a fresh set of eyes to, much like we did with the finance department, get into the operational side of the business, help us understand what some of the low-hanging fruit are and what are some of the areas that need to be studied in further detail. And I think that's where we're at. And what I've been doing with Chief Wayne over the last several weeks is starting to look at the drafts of his work as it's coming forward and talking about how do we continue this effort going. The absolute vital thing here is that we continue to build on the work that's been started in the last 6 months. And at one point, you want to cherish the history and the traditions of the departments, but at the same time, you want to continue to push forward the best practices and the way to deliver the highest level of services going forward. We are in the process of hopefully finalizing the selection of the new chief forward. Those conversations, a lot of that dealt with the issues and challenges that we're dealing with today, that we are able to then continue this going forward. So I think the answer to the question is, I am hopeful that all of the things that have been done will continue to go forward, but I'd also have to say, I don't know that I know everything yet. I mean, I'm still studying and reading.
Right, but some things will, like the response. Okay, thank you.
Shall we go to section 4?
Okay, section 4. Work with appropriate parties to outline a plan to transition to a community medicine approach with specific focus on transition from basic life support to advanced life support. And we've kind of done some of this preliminary work. Yes, sir?
Can you change the screen?
Oh, you bet. My bad. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've kind of done a lot of this preliminary work. Coming in, I thought that we could go to work and start to implement some advanced life support within a couple of weeks. And that just simply is not the case. There's some areas that we need to shore up ahead of time in order to kind of get ourselves in a position to do that. So simply, we're just not in a position to transition to ALS at this time, as much as I would like to do that and lead that charge. We're just not ready. And let me tell you why. Within this EMS community, the ambulance service is kind of the primary EMS provider. TFD has historically taken on a supportive role. So we haven't really been engaged at the level that I'd like to see or be comfortable with then advancing into an advanced life support role. So some areas that I see as critical in developing that BLS mastery before we can move to an ALS component. So number one, train and equip personnel with the tools to provide increased care, tools and equipment. So that's glucometers, adding glucometers so they can check blood sugars, adding airway devices so they can do positive pressure so for somebody that's having an asthma attack or severe difficulty breathing. additional tools like an eye gel and other things that are airway adjuncts, train the best practice models, pit crew concept, and the spinal mobilization. So as we start to build that core level of service, we all start to develop and train and equip our folks to the highest level of BLS care. So we have some areas to improve upon there. Develop and implement a CQI program, continuous quality improvement. Currently, there is not one where we look at charts and we look at patient care and we examine those things to see how we're doing. Identify trends and then train to those trends as areas of deficiency. Or areas that we do exceptionally well, then we can just be able to monitor and track. So CQI gives us that component. But CQI is contingent upon moving from paper charts to electronic charts. We have to transition to electronic patient care. That data mining capability that's available out of the EPCR is just incredible. You can drill down on any aspect of the service that you're providing. If you just wanted to look at cardiac arrest, how long to apply the pads? How long to initiate CPR? How long to get an airway adjunct? And then you start to translate all those data points into cardiac survivability. Then you can really focus your training and efforts and make a significant impact on your community and the various different EMS situations. Next step would be able to triage calls out of the communication center utilizing an EMD. This is critically important to us. This is a problem that has to be addressed, in my opinion, because that, as they say in the EMS world, time is muscle as it relates to cardiac events. So any amount of time that we can save in that dispatch center by getting EMD in that process early, getting TFD units responding quicker and faster, would really make an impact on this process. Then lastly, the one that would kind of evolve and change kind of our level of service as we transition from a supporting role into a primary role. So we start to transition after we've got these things completed, we've got mastery of BLS skills, and we continue to move forward with that. We changed how our ambulance provider provides care in the community. So that means they don't go on every call. They only go on ALS calls and only when they're requested. So TFD is providing basic life support. They get on scene, they provide care, they take care of the customer, and if they deem that there's transport necessary, then they reach out to the ambulance provider for that transport. So these things will help us gain that BLS mastery and put us in a position to look at and then advance services in the ways of advanced life support and community paramedicine. Number 5?
Yes.
If I can just step in. So I think it's important to say this. So what we've been doing, we've been having this conversation internally and in various manners for about 2 years. And it really started out talking about, you have approximately 18,000 calls that the fire department makes every year. About between 14 and 15,000 of those calls are medically related as opposed to fire or other types of things. And it really is a resource management issue, and are we investing our resources in the right way? And that initiated the conversation, and as we continued to have that conversation, we started taking a look at, well, what would that look like? What are the hindrances to getting there? And really, what are those additional opportunities that are out there? And we've had some phenomenal conversations, even with hospitals and with Vallejo and others and the various types of people that are there. So what this effort is, so nobody thinks that we've made this decision and we're implementing all of these plans and we're changing everything today. What we're trying to do is understand what a plan would look like, what a plan would cost, how does that implement its way through the organization. So nobody should be thinking that okay, this is what we're doing. We're trying to figure out how to do this, and if we do that, is it something that we can really go all in on and change the way we do business? So I know I've had conversations with people over time, but this is something that we're taking seriously, but this body would certainly be aware and knowledgeable prior to us going further with this.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's helpful to see the big picture. Councilwoman Schwartz.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, I come from a background of health, so I'm really interested in this whole aspect. Is it true that 75% of our calls are medically related? not fire-related?
Correct, 75, 80%
Okay.
is kind of the national average as well.
Do we have a medical director and do?
We do.
Okay. So
Yes,
we do have
absolutely.
we have a physician contracted as a medical director?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do we have an EMT committee?
We have an EMS committee that is intimately involved in all the aspects of training and equipment and moving forward on all those items.
And how many EMTs, if I may follow up, how many EMTs are in the fire department? Do you have, just off the top of your head?
Well, it's going to be about 185-ish because there's 18 of those folks are advanced EMTs or paramedics.
Okay. And they're meeting to try to move us forward. I mean, if 75% of our calls are medical related, and we have a committee that helps to move that medical aspect forward, are we getting that information from them on a regular basis as to how to do that?
Yeah, so the EMS chief, Richard Siegel, is leading that charge. He has that EMS committee of mostly paramedics that are very skilled, very experienced folks that are assisting and moving the EMS component for TFD forward.
Okay. And my final question is, if we have 75% of our calls are medical calls, do we, and this comes from 20 tough questions to ask your fire chief, which you're probably familiar with.
Where'd you get that?
It's from the
ICMA.
Yeah, ICMA. There really is.
Oh, I have that one in my drawer, too.
Okay. Do we need to send a fire apparatus to calls including all medical requests from 911? That's one of the biggest complaints that I hear from constituents, is we're sending these big, and I know the response I try to tell them is that, well, if they get another call, they're ready to go with the big fire truck. So, but if we have enough staff that we would send EMTs, do we need to send, and evidently this is an important question that's come up in other cities.
Yeah, so if you look at best practice models across the region and the state, whether it's Olathe or it's Lawrence or Manhattan, KCK, the national model is at least 3 to 4 members on a fire truck responding fire-based EMS calls, because we're an all-hazard business. So if we take those vehicles that don't really have much capability other than getting point A to point B, then there's ability to limit their impact. And I've been on multiple incidents where we're coming back from the hospital and the fire kicks out and we're responding, and we get there before anybody else, and we've made rescues, we've limited damage, and it's just best practice models, because you're not really sure what the next call is going to be, and that's the gamble that you end up taking.
And one last question in this medical piece. You feel like that is where, ALS is where most fire departments are going with becoming ALS instead of just basic?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, again, if you look at regionally, you look at Olathe, KCK, Lenexa, all those departments are fire-based ALS providers, and they provide that service from the fire truck.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to build on that, Councilmember Schwartz. So when we started this conversation, it really was, are we doing the best BLS we can? Do we need to go to ALS? But really, as that conversation developed, it's like, well, if there's 15,000 or 14,000 plus medical-related calls, well, what do they look like? And how do you respond to those things? And that's where the conversations with St. Francis and Stormont Val and Vallejo and the VA and police and CIT and so many other groups got involved. And there's a lot of conversations that's occurring now and saying, well, do you even have to take that? Do you have to send a truck? We might know who that person is because we've gotten 17 calls from them in the past month. And are there things that you can do that actually start looking at the resources? So I think this type of understanding the medical side of it, I think it also fits into understanding the psychological side of this and understanding some of the other things that are occurring for the specific purposes. You don't want a truck to be running on a skinned knee when all of a sudden a 2-alarm fire breaks out somewhere else and you have limited restrictions at that point.
Okay, good discussion. Good conversation. Councilwoman Claire.
Are there different ALS models?
Yes. I come from a system where it's every engine's ALS, every ladder company's ALS, every unit's ALS, and it's 4-person with 2 medics. So that's the system that I used to. In this area, it looks like it's 3 personnel with 1 of those being a medic. So the variation comes in how the transport happens. That overall layout on the fire truck is pretty consistent, and it's just a matter of how you choose to render care and transport.
So we would need to make a decision on which model we were looking at.
Yeah, I guess that's a question that needs to be discussed and answered in the future.
Okay.
You know, if I would take my TFD now and make the Dream Team TFD, it would look a lot like 3-person personnel with 1 of those individuals being a medic on every engine in the city.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Okay, well, shall we, one more.
Clarification on what I think I heard you say. We were talking about having you deliver us a plan to advance to ALS. Were you saying that actually, even though we have EMTs, we've got a substantial amount of, if you will, backfill training to do to even really be excellent at BLS at this point?
Yeah, so we've got some work to do and some areas to shore up. But there's never been an EMS chief. There's never been any program management. So some of the stuff just really hasn't been addressed. And now I've got a really strong EMS chief that is really pushing the envelope of developing a solid core BLS delivery system for this community. And so yes, there has been some deficiencies and gaps that need to be addressed, and we're working as quickly as possible to address them.
And the technology that you discussed is really critical even to BLS, not...
Yeah, absolutely. That data mining capability is key in everything that we do nowadays. I mean, you guys want data to support decisions that you want to support. So those, I believe, are really critical components for any EMS delivery system, whether it's ALS or BLS.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, moving along. Number 5.
We made it. This is my shortest one yet, I think. So work to develop a strategic plan with specific goals, objectives, service improvement recommendations, and performance standards. As we spoke a little bit about earlier, my report to the city manager will serve as a strategic plan for the fire department until the fire department devotes time and energy towards the development of a 5-year community-driven strategic plan that is consistent with the overall strategy of the city. The bulk of my report focuses on EMS and training. However, each discipline or each division within the department needs to work to develop goals, objectives, and service improvement. Embarking on accreditation, I think, is key because it gives you that end goal. What does it need to look like in the end? So you build a system that meets the end goal, and you just don't create your own system. So I think accreditation is key for developing that for long term. The department has seen a considerable amount of changes over the last couple of years, and it has accepted me over the last 6 months with relatively open arms, and I'm really appreciative of that, and their willingness to allow an outsider into their department homes, firehouses has been quite a joy and also a pleasure. There's no shortage of talent in this organization. And yes, we have some areas to address and we have some gaps to fix. But this department has some strong personnel and some key people that can lead those charges. In closing, I'd like to reiterate the quality personnel within the department. I have seen significant improvement in a relatively short period of time. With continued support from city leadership, governing body, I can say with confidence that the TFD stands ready to address any and all of these gaps in this report. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for your candidness, for your knowledge, what you have brought, and what we've heard tonight. I think this is one time we spent more time on fire than we did on the budget, and that's good. I think it's been a very good exercise. Appreciate it. Now, other Councilman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll tell you how I measured this young man. When I got calls that said, He's one of us. He's eating with us, he's riding the truck with us, and he's fighting fires with us. No questions asked. He's out there right alongside of us. You built morale, and I say thank you for that. It was long and overdue. We don't even do that, and I say thank you for that. When you delivered the helmets and the badges and you said, "Job well done," and you told them they were great and they needed that, ever since I've been on this council, they've needed that. I say thank you for that, because you know what? You warmed their heart, and you let them know that they were a part of a city that they love and they appreciate. And I say thank you for that. I say thank you, thank you, thank you. You will be missed, and I appreciate you coming. Even though that you knew that it was a short amount of time, you came in and you delivered. You seen the hurt, you seen the pain, but most of all, you listened, and job well done. And when you're through in Arizona, you need to come back home.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Jensen.
Well, I don't know if I can follow those comments. I will echo everything she said. I want to thank you for giving us a foundation to improve our fire department from here on out. I think you've asked excellent questions, provided extra results. I'm very excited to read your more in-depth report, but this really gives us the foundation to take what was already a great fire department and make it the best in the nation. And I can't wait to work with the city manager, the new chief, and all of our firefighters out there to make it happen. Thank you for your help and safe travels.
Thank you. Councilman Schwartz.
Thank you. I've probably been one of the hardest members on the council on the fire department since I've been on the council for 3 years. I still have one or two tough questions, but I do want to reiterate the appreciation of trying to make things work in our fire department. I want what everybody else wants is a good fire department. Right. So one of my final questions is going to be on diversity. And I had heard that it's been 16 years since we hired a female firefighter, and also minorities. Are we promoting minorities, women, you know, all the minorities in our fire department? And do we need to work on that?
Well, two questions, I guess. The first is a result of the overall diversity within the department. I don't think it's quite 16 years. I think it's more like 10 years. But regardless, it's a long time since we've had a women successfully go through the process. This last test, we had 60-something applicants. 2 or 3 of those were women. And those 3 women didn't make it through the physical component, and some other things dropped them out. And the overall diversity is honestly, it's poor. So we really do have to aggressively look at some alternative methods, and there's programs out there that do good jobs at addressing that early and recruiting early and doing some things different. Maybe it's an EMT program that we host ourselves, coupled with a CPAP preparation course for high school seniors or folks just out of high school. So we just have to be more active on that front, because yes, the Civil Service Board was asking the same questions the other day as they saw the folks that came through the door. So that's a real concern for us, and we need to figure out a way to address it. Then second, regarding promotions, the promotions are kind of what they are. I mean, you take a test and you pass the test, then based off where you fall in seniority, then there's no real other factors. The only other kind of human factors come into play is when you test for management positions, then it's interviews and presentations and a lot more subjectivity, where through the ranks, it's completely hands-off approach in terms of promotional processes.
City Manager.
Yes, if I could just touch, I was actually going to call Chief Brown up to kind of talk about the lessons learned from police. This is tough, and this is a tough national issue. We've been having some conversations about the future of the department, and we've talked about various concepts, and it's really getting down into the junior high schools and start building relationships with the young people. And absolutely, the city manager's been asking questions about diversity, both from a police and a fire perspective, and I think that it is it's frustrating in a lot of regards, but I don't think it's by design. I think that it is just a very difficult, challenging issue today. I know, and I can tell you with the strongest amount of emotion possible that we're going to put every effort into it. And we're going to look at some of the things that police are doing. We're building a cadet program. They're trying to capture the young people between high school and college and hold on to those people and keep them involved in the program. But it's really hard. It's getting harder and harder and harder to recruit people, especially from a minority perspective, into public safety today. Extremely difficult.
Deputy Mayor Daley.
I was going to make some comments, but I'm going to jump in on this one really quick. I think that one of the things that I've heard, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, is that the most difficult part for women is the upper body strength portion when they have to just carry apparatus as they're going up. And what city manager just said, I think it's extremely important for us to listen to, because we really have to start tackling early on the training that we're doing, and maybe doing some pre-training camps in order for us to better equip the people that may be interested in participating in this career, because it's a wonderful career. We have our heroes out there. So that being said, thank you for that discussion, Councilwoman. Love to hear those conversations. And I wanted to say thank you. You mentioned something when you stood here, and you said that you remember I've been here for 6 months, and there was a little bit of press. I would love for us to receive the same type of press right now as you're leaving these doors after the supreme work that you've done for this city. You were the right candidate. Thank you, City Manager. This was the right candidate. Thank you so much for the work that you've done with our staff. Thank you so much for providing us all of this information. When we were in the budget process, this was one of the things that we said that we wanted to discuss, that we really wanted to get deep into what was going on in the department. And you've done that for us today, publicly. Some of those things, we're sitting here, I told Councilman Emerson, wow, we need training. It's like sitting here and just getting a punch to the gut because there's areas for improvement. But at the same time, you're also celebrating the amazing people that are out there working day in and day out and helping them and equipping us to support the manager and the staff so that we could move forward into the future. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you. And I know we have a couple rows of firefighters back there that are important to be a part, and thank you also for being here this evening and being a part of this presentation. If there are no other further questions, this discussion item is complete. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chief. That completes our non-action items. We then go to announcements, and we do not have a preliminary agenda since we are not meeting for the next couple of weeks. So, Mr. City Manager, if you want to proceed with your announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So first, I'll just talk about the MTPO. They're going to have the 2 open houses on Thursday, August 18th, to learn about priorities for future regional transportation projects. Those will be from noon to 2 and from 5:30 to 7:30 at the public library on 10th. And then the last thing I want to say is I can't say enough for Chief Wayne. And I paid a great cost personally and professionally to have him here. And he was worth it. I think that he did a nice job in working through the 5 areas.
Mike on. Okay. Sometimes
he did a very good job through the 5 areas. But what I think he really did, and I think it's something that will be remembered in this city for a long time, is he created a level of trust, and he created a foundation for communication, and I hope that's what goes forward, and that's what his legacy going here. I think that he has prepared us to continue to have some very difficult discussions and to achieve some great things. When there's no trust, it's very difficult to make progress, and we all have to understand that, A, we all think we're right, and B, there's got to be a middle ground to achieve some longer-term goals, and I look forward to those conversations going forward. I look forward to it.
Thank you. I wanted to comment that two comments. First of all, that we did approve a budget tonight, which is always very significant, one of the most significant things we do every year. And I think amazing, we had apparently a very fine process, that there was so good coming together tonight, an agreement. And I want to acknowledge the staff that did an outstanding job, Brendan and Nikki, and all the people involved in finance for their effort, and all the departments. Then I also want to compliment our deputy mayor for her leadership with the Topeka Rescue Mission in pulling together the building program where they're going to have volunteers build the playgrounds. It's an outstanding opportunity for the community, and she's doing an outstanding job providing a leadership role and with her company. With that, we'll go to Councilman Jensen.
Thank you. This is my last practice anniversary. We got married 1 month ago today, and so if Amber's watching, you should be. I want to say happy 1 month anniversary. One of my favorite organizations I work with in the city is the Ronald McDonald House, and this weekend is their annual gala. It's Denim to Diamonds, and it's August 20th at the Ramada Inn, and I would hope that everyone can go and help support that wonderful organization. If you're not familiar with them, if you have a baby in the NICU at one of the hospitals, they give you a place to stay that is much, much cheaper than a hotel, and it's a wonderful old house. It's a very family-oriented, loving environment, and their whole setup is just to help you get through helping your baby become a healthy individual that can go home. And so I would hope everyone supports their organization. They're a wonderful group of folks, and they need your help. So please attend. It's going to be a wonderful evening. Have a nice week.
Councilwoman Schwartz.
Thank you. I worked with Mindy Reese, the executive director at Ronald McDonald House for years at KDHE, and support that. And my granddaughter and I actually went there and cleaned furniture.
Awesome.
So I do support that also. My gem for the week is our school system. We got a letter from Dr. Tiffany Anderson, and I know several people went to their opening this last week. And I just think our school system is really terrific here in Topeka. And if you got one of the, I probably won't go this year because I don't have any more kids in the school system or grandkids in the school system, but I'm probably going to keep this and go to one of the games because our system of schools is just excellent. So that's the gem for this week.
Thank you. Councilman Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to invite everybody out to the Midwest Aquatic Center. We're open. 21st and Urish. It's a very fine facility. So we went out there last week. I rode the slides that were open and with my kids. So I encourage you all to come out and visit.
Very good. Councilman Harmon, Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. Speaking of the schools, I want to remind everybody, if you haven't, to take the economic development survey that Go Topeka sent out. Before I even took it, I'd gotten feedback from kind of people from the street that they thought it was one of the best ones they'd ever seen. And it does talk about the schools. There's a partnership that's gone together with Go Topeka to get that survey out. I'm excited about its application once we're done. So if all of us can do that survey, and even if you do Facebook or newsletters, pop it out with a link to people that you know. They're getting record numbers back like we do here, and I think that's great, because the better data we have. I too wanted to thank the firefighters. We don't have that many left anymore, and Chief Wayne I'll speak to before he goes, but when I first started getting responses from the firefighters themselves saying, we're talking about some tough stuff, but it's good, I respect that and appreciate that on their part. Everybody have a good Labor Day, for crying out loud.
Right.
There's lots going on between now and when we meet again. Thank you.
Councilman Clear.
I went to the 501 opening. It was great. I don't teach in the area, but they motivated me for school. I mean, it was really, they did a good job. It was great. I went to the Arts Connect on 4th Street Bridge and helped the kiddos in the neighborhood paint on the bridge. Oh, they were so excited. That was so nice to see. Couple of things. The parade, October 8th in North Topeka. 11 o'clock. We also have, there is a Holiday Junior High. I went to Holiday Junior High in Oakland, a Holiday Junior High all-alum reunion in September. September 17th. It's on Facebook, so if anybody went to Holiday Junior High. We have the historic Pappins Ferry Topeka Riverfront Park conceptual development. Monday, the 22nd, is a community meeting, and there's a presentation, short presentation, kind of question-answer thing from 6:30 to 7:30. And what else? And it is my 25th anniversary tomorrow. Thank you. Oh, so happy anniversary, honey.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I was sitting here, I wanted to say to please slow down. The kids started school today because I see a lot of people speeding through the school zone. I had to laugh because I remember the guys were calling me about Chief Wayne, and they said, whatever you do, Sylvia, don't piss him off. We like him. We like him. So I wanted to tell you that. And I want to go back in time. A lot of you will not remember this, but Richard will. 2013, it was 3:04. We were working on the budget. I sent that article to Nikki. I don't think she believed me, but I had to send it to her. And there was one year we lost power up here, so we had to go in the basement. And they set us up in the basement, and we were there till late hours. So it's kind of weird to say we're done with the budget because I remember there would be so much back and forth and tired and go getting another cup of coffee or soda or whatever. So Richard, we are done with the budget. But I want to take you back in time because things are getting better. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As was alluded to earlier, our 37th California project in my district has had significant problems with utility issues. So I want to thank Schmidtline Excavating and Greg Carlson of Carlson Excavating. Those guys they just really did us all a huge favor in that district by changing where they're working. And Greg, as he reminds me every time I see him now, has spent a lot of time and effort to get 37th Street open. So I really appreciate what those guys did. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Neelitha.
Thank you, Mayor Wolgast. I want to start by saying a huge thank you again to Chief Wayne. You will be missed. Another thing that I wanted to say is, again, thank you to everybody that showed up at the rescue mission. It was absolutely beautiful to see such a huge cross-section of businesses and partners in the community that are going to help build this place. It's going to be amazing. We invite you all to participate. The other thing that I want to do is I want to say also thank you to Nikki. Nikki, working on the budget was an every week process, and a lot of people have no idea how long the process is. You work starting in March, meeting with every one of us. You listen to all of our concerns. You work with each and every one of our personalities, and we all are very flamboyant in one way or another. So thank you for that. And you do this with such professionalism. Thank you for your work. I so appreciated working this with you. In addition to that, I also want to say thank you to my fellow council members. You all were absolutely wonderful to work with. Just the capacity for all of us to converse, to disagree, to have the openness to say, hey, we're having too much conversation on this issue. Let's stop it right now and put it on a parking lot, to be respectful to each other, to be able to listen and collaborate and sometimes agree to disagree. You guys are just helping our city reflect in such great positive light. And I want to thank all of you for working so great with us in this process. Nikki and I have already started talking about what could have been better. One of the things that we were talking about was, I heard comments of, hey, we had these meetings in March, and after we had those meetings in March with the council individually, we didn't come back and have that discussion openly for the public early on in the process. We're already talking about, for the next deputy mayor, whoever that may be, those comments have already been taken into account. So just know that we appreciate all you do. Another thing on a funny note is on Thursday, Allie, right, on 1 o'clock, the city of Topeka won the Pokemon Award. Allie and one of our attorneys, I think you're right there, right? No? No? Okay, so we won, we beat Lawrence. And at 1 o'clock at Westar Energy on Thursday, we're going to be receiving an award for being the champions. So if you want, please show up. The city of Topeka representing. And finally, I seldom do public things, but I know that there's somebody that I love very much. A lot of people sometimes get to have a fairy godmother. I have a fairy Marge mother. And Marge Heaney is absolutely wonderful. And I just wanted to let her know that I love her very much. And she's always watching everything that we're doing. So for everybody that knows Marge Heaney, she's watching all the time.
Very good.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Thank you. Those are the announcements. We go to public comment with Joseph Ledbetter.
Governing body, I knew you'd be meeting for a few weeks. Back to an earlier topic. Economic development is tied in many ways to code enforcement in cities. I've actually been talking to some people engaged in economic development, and they've been telling me that you're spot on. You've got to have good code enforcement in these cities. The Garden report talked about the city didn't show well. Now, this isn't to bring anybody down after all those bubbly reports. It's to simply say we have a problem, and until we talk about it and take a new direction, we're not going to fix it. If you do good code enforcement, you're going to actually get private capital flowing into some of these neighborhoods that are more distressed if you do good code enforcement. But people not invest in neighborhoods, good investors, that'll actually take care of the properties if you do not do code enforcement because they don't want to lose their investment. You can actually stop capital flight to the suburbs if you do good code enforcement in the cities. And a lot of cities in the state do good code enforcement. What I'm seeing in Topeka is I'm seeing a handful of landlords that have no respect for our ordinances or our neighborhoods or their neighbors, and absolutely causing people to lose their quiet enjoyment of their own property. It may only take one bad property on a block to just destroy the tranquility of that whole block. 2 or more of these properties in a neighborhood can start dragging down a neighborhood. And all you have to do is just watch the process. Go over to Likens Foster, where there was a lot of nice houses and a lot of homeowners just 15 years ago. And I just drove over there the other day because I had lived there at one time. I said, I wonder how this area is doing. Trash in the streets, boarded up houses. But it's not the vacant houses that are really the biggest problem, in spite of what some people say. I don't think it's the vacant houses that are causing the majority of problems with code enforcement. I think it's the occupied houses, the ones that have landlords that live out of the city, live out of the county, and have no concern for this city, and no concern for those neighborhoods, and no concern for the neighbors. And the only place we can go as homeowners is to code enforcement. And if that's broken or it's not functioning correctly or quickly, then what are you going to do? I asked one of the code enforcement people today, I said, what is your due process timeline for getting rid of a refrigerator in a front yard where a kid could crawl in it? They didn't give me an answer. But they just assured me they couldn't possibly deal with that refrigerator in a timely fashion. I'm going, I don't understand this. These are dangerous situations, and our hands are tied? I don't think so. I think we've got to start rethinking how we deal with code enforcement in this community. It is an economic development issue. It is important that we understand the connectivity. People buy a home, it's their major investment. So if they're in a neighborhood that only one landlord starts to tear down the neighborhood and doesn't care, where are they going to turn to? They're going to lose their investment, and they don't want to lose their investment. And a lot of these people want to stay in Topeka, but it is, that's all right. You know what? I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. That concludes the public comment. We have one executive session, if the city attorney would provide the parameters for that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm requesting that we have a motion to enter into executive session to discuss non-elected personnel matters, just myself and the elected officials, and I would suggest maybe 20 minutes.
Okay. Okay, the motion has been made to go into executive session following those parameters. Is there a second? Cohen seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes. Opposed vote no. I vote yes.
We have 9 yes.
9 voted yes. We will go into executive session. Let's take a 5-minute break.